Hello, and a wonderful, heartfelt welcome to every single one of you watching today. Wherever you are in the world, I am genuinely sending you my best wishes and positive energy. I truly hope you and your loved ones are feeling fantastic, full of vitality, and in the absolute best of health. It's a real pleasure to have you here with me today, and we're about to dive into one of the most astonishing processes happening inside your body at this very moment. We're going to talk about speed, but not the kind you see in a car or a supercomputer. We're going to talk about the incredible speed of your own nervous system. The fact that the signals zipping through your body right now, allowing you to think, feel, and move, can travel at speeds over 400 kilometers per hour. That's a staggering velocity, faster than most Formula One race cars, and it's happening in the background of your existence every single second. It's the reason you can pull your hand away from a hot stove in a flash, or catch a glass tumbling off a table without even having to think about it. This isn't just biology, it's a superhighway of information operating at a pace that is almost unimaginable, and it's all happening inside you. So, let's take a journey together to understand how this biological marvel works. To really grasp this, we need to start with the basic building block of the nervous system, the neuron. A neuron is a very special type of cell, and it looks nothing like the typical round cells you might picture. Imagine a tiny tree with roots, a trunk, and branches. Now, imagine that tree has a long, long tail coming out of it. That's essentially what a neuron looks like. The main body of the cell, which contains the nucleus and all the essential machinery to keep the cell alive, is like the trunk of the tree. Coming out of that cell body are lots of short, branching structures called dendrites. These are like the roots of the tree, and their job is to receive incoming signals from other neurons. Then, there's one single, long, thin fiber called the axon. This is the tail. And this axon can be incredibly long. For example, the neuron that lets you wiggle your big toe has its cell body in your lower spine, and its axon stretches all the way down your leg to your toe. That's a meter-long cell in an average adult. The nerve impulse, the electrical signal we're talking about, travels along this axon, from the cell body down to the very end. The end of the axon has little branches that connect to the dendrites of the next neuron in the chain, and so on, creating a vast, intricate network of connections that runs throughout your entire body. Now, the big question is, how does this signal travel? It's easy to think of it like electricity flowing through a wire in your house, and while that's a helpful starting point for the analogy, what's actually happening in the neuron is far more fascinating and complex. It's a beautiful, elegant dance of chemistry and electricity. The key to the entire process lies in something called the resting membrane potential. This is a fancy term for an electrical voltage difference that exists across the cell membrane of the neuron when it's just sitting there, not sending any signal. Inside the neuron, there is an abundance of negatively charged molecules and proteins. Outside the neuron, in the fluid that bathes it, there is an abundance of positively charged sodium ions and positively charged potassium ions. The cell membrane is very selective about what it lets in and out. In its resting state, the neuron actively pumps out 3 sodium ions for every 2 potassium ions it lets back in. This pumping action, done by a structure famously called the sodium-potassium pump, creates a stable imbalance. The result is that the inside of the neuron is about 70 millivolts more negative than the outside. You can think of the neuron like a tiny battery, charged and waiting to be used. This is its default resting state. The magic begins when a stimulus arrives. Let's say you touch something sharp. The sensory neurons in your fingertip get activated. This activation disturbs that careful balance at one specific spot on the neuron's membrane. If the disturbance is strong enough, it triggers an event called an action potential. This is the technical name for the nerve impulse itself. The action potential is not a gentle wave. It's an all-or-nothing explosive event. What happens is that special gates in the membrane, called voltage-gated sodium channels, suddenly fly open at that spot. Remember all that sodium sitting outside, positively charged and just yearning to get in because of the electrical and concentration difference? The second those gates open, sodium ions come rushing into the neuron, driven by this immense pressure. This sudden flood of positive charge completely reverses the electrical situation at that exact spot on the axon. For a brief instant, the inside becomes positively charged compared to the outside. This reversal of voltage is the action potential, but it's a very localized event. This electrical spike acts as the trigger for the next section of the axon. The influx of positive charge from the sodium ions diffuses to the neighboring, still resting section of the axon membrane. This change in voltage causes the voltage-gated sodium channels in that next section to snap open, and the whole process repeats. Sodium rushes in, the voltage reverses, and the electrical spike is regenerated. This cycle continues down the entire length of the axon. The impulse doesn't physically travel along the axon. It's more like a wave of dominoes falling. Each section of the axon actively regenerates the signal anew, ensuring it doesn't weaken or fade over distance, no matter how long the axon is. This is how a signal can go from your toe to your spine without losing strength. After the sodium gates open and the impulse passes, the cell has to reset itself immediately to be ready for the next signal. This is where the potassium ions come into play. Right after the sodium gates open, they quickly close. But another set of gates, the voltage-gated potassium channels, now swing open. Potassium ions, which are also positively charged but are more concentrated on the inside of the cell, now rush out, driven by their own concentration gradient. This exodus of positive charge quickly brings the voltage back down to negative, actually overshooting it slightly for a moment before the sodium-potassium pump kicks into high gear to restore the original resting state by pumping all the sodium back out and the potassium back in. This entire process, from the initial spike to the reset, takes only about 1 to 2 milliseconds. And then the neuron is ready to fire again. So, if the signal is just this domino effect of opening and closing channels, why isn't it always the same speed? Why can it reach these incredible velocities of over 400 kilometers per hour? This is where one of nature's most brilliant inventions comes into play, the myelin sheath. Myelin is a fatty, white substance that wraps around the axons of many neurons. It's made by special helper cells called oligodendrocytes in the brain and spinal cord, and Schwann cells in the rest of the body. The myelin sheath doesn't cover the axon in one continuous sleeve. Instead, it's wrapped around it in little segments, like individual sausages linked together on a string. Between each segment of myelin, there is a tiny, exposed gap of the axon called the node of Ranvier. This design is the secret to super-fast communication. Because the myelin is such a good insulator, it prevents ions from leaking out across the membrane. The action potential cannot form where the axon is insulated by the myelin. Instead, the electrical charge that builds up inside the axon at one node of Ranvier is so well preserved by the myelin sheath that it can jump, almost instantaneously, to the next node. This process is called saltatory conduction, from the Latin word saltar, which means to leap. So, the impulse doesn't have to painstakingly regenerate itself at every single microscopic point along the axon. It can leap from node to node, skipping the long stretches in between. This is a massive efficiency upgrade. It's the difference between walking every step of a 100-kilometer road and taking a high-speed train that only stops at the major stations. This myelination is what allows the nerve impulse to achieve those breathtaking speeds of over 400 kilometers per hour. The thickest, most heavily myelinated axons in your body, like those controlling your muscles for movement or conveying sharp pain signals, are the speed demons of your nervous system. This incredible speed is not just a neat biological fact, it is a matter of life and death. Think about all the reflexes that keep you safe. If you step on a sharp object, the signal from your foot has to travel up your leg to your spinal cord, and a signal has to travel back down to your leg muscles to make you lift your foot. This entire reflex arc happens in a fraction of a second, before the pain signal has even reached your brain to make you consciously think, ouch. That split-second reaction, powered by this immense speed, prevents serious injury. The same principle applies to pulling your hand from a hot surface, blinking when something flies toward your eye, or adjusting your balance instantly when you slip. Every time you engage in a complex physical activity, like playing sports, dancing, or even just typing on a keyboard, you are relying on this high-speed data network. Your brain can send a command to your fingers, and the feedback from your fingertips about the key's resistance can come back to your brain, all in a time frame that feels instantaneous. This seamless, high-speed communication is what allows for coordination, precision, and grace in movement. It's also the very foundation of our conscious experience. The world we perceive is built from these signals. The light entering your eye is converted into electrical impulses that race along the optic nerve to your brain at these incredible speeds, allowing you to perceive the world in real time. The sound waves hitting your eardrum are transformed into neural signals that travel just as fast, so you can hear a sentence without a delay between each word. When you decide to speak, your thoughts are converted into commands that fly down to your diaphragm, your larynx, your tongue, and your lips at over 400 kilometers per hour, resulting in coherent speech. The sensation of a loved one's touch, the flavor of your favorite food, the smell of rain, all of these experiences are made possible by this rapid-fire transmission of information. It is the fundamental infrastructure of your consciousness, your movement, and your connection to the world around you. So, the next time you react without thinking or effortlessly catch something tumbling from a table, take a moment to appreciate the invisible, high-speed symphony happening within you. It's a process that combines intricate chemistry with elegant physics, all wrapped up in a biological structure that is both resilient and breathtakingly fast. Your nervous system is a testament to the power of evolution, a network of living wires conducting the electricity of life itself at speeds that defy belief. It is, without a doubt, one of the most magnificent wonders of the human body. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the heart of your own biology. I hope you have a newfound appreciation for the incredible processes that keep you going. Take care of yourselves, stay curious, and as always, be well and stay healthy.